Welcome to Grow Smarter Utah, brought to you by Tobe Agency and Be Social. As a Utah business owner, you know the pressure of making every marketing dollar count. Our mission is to help you waste less and grow smarter with your marketing investments, focusing on what actually matters in the Utah market. Today, we're going to go industry specific. If you own or run an automotive business in Utah, whether that's a dealership, a service center, a custom wrap shop, or a detailing business, this episode is for you. Because here's the problem. Most automotive businesses are spending money on the wrong marketing channel. The oil change shop is burning budget on Instagram. The custom wrap shop is ignoring it. And almost everyone is neglecting their Google business profile. We're going to break down exactly which marketing channels work for which type of automotive business so you can stop guessing and start investing where it actually drives customers through your door. I'm Andrew Hong, founder of Tobe Agency. I handle the technical side, the SEO, the paid ads, analytics, conversion tracking, and Brayden from Be Social is back. He specializes in content creation and organic social strategy for local business, including automotive clients right here in Utah. So we're splitting the lanes a little bit. I'll cover the search and SEO side. Brayden will kind of cover the creative and social side. And together, we'll show you the full picture. Brayden, welcome back. How you doing?
Doing good. Feels good to be back.
Awesome. So automotive really is your specialty. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of got into the scene. We all kind of got here through a passion for cars and things like that, but how did you sort of turn um, a passion into a profession? Not many are able to do that.
Like you said, it all stemmed from cars, like going out to the meets and hanging out. And, obviously, huge passion for cars, like since I was a little kid. And to not make a long story long, I started taking photos on my iPhone at that time and was like doing quick edits and posting them. And then, I met a couple people who were like, hey, like, go buy a camera and start doing this a little bit better. And then it just kept evolving and evolving. And, long story short, I found kind of a need for the market. I just spent a ton of time not only honing in my craft, but also just the knowledge and the time that it takes to really create value for businesses that's actually going to help them grow. So not only could I run a profitable business and do this full time and work in a niche that I love, but also bring benefit to people who are trying to grow and do the same thing in their own business.
Awesome. I mean, you've organized a lot of things in the community here in northern Utah, and you're involved in Cars and Coffee out here. You've got your own brand that you're building as well, Throttle Therapy Club. Tell me a little bit about some of the clients that you're working with out here. What types of businesses are they? What do they do? What do you do for them?
Yeah, yeah. So we work with a wide range of businesses, everything from like dealerships. So like we work with Porsche. We work with a couple other like more boutiques dealerships, a few OEM dealerships, like GMC, etc. And so, that's one part of our niche. We also work with wrap shops, people who kind of do a little bit more on the customization side. We've consulted with a lot of different automotive shops, people who handle more of the maintenance side, and just kind of everything in between. So, we work with like Warehouse Motor Club and Club Paddock, which are more membership based, but still heavily automotive. And so, yeah, just kind of the full range and everything in between, automotive related, and a few other brick and mortar style businesses.
That's a pretty awesome portfolio. And if any folks out there are Porsche, Lamborghini, or any of the sort of exotic car fans, I think Brayden has a portfolio of pretty much every exotic supercar that's in Utah, and there's quite a few of them actually. So tell me, Brayden, like when you're working across, like you're doing shoots for Porsche, right? Obviously, a brand requires a lot of thought, right, and precision when you execute, right? So tell me about some of the work that you do there, and like what's the work that drives value for, like a pretty prestigious dealership that's got a pretty prestigious brand, versus some of the work that you might do with a smaller business or one that's in like a different category, which may be, like a like third party parts, or they might be, they may not be OEM, right? So what are some differences in the approaches that you take with the work that you do with these very different types of brand in automotive, to be honest.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting because people look at it and be like, "That's the dream brand to work with," and it's like, yes, it's the dream brand. Like it's super cool to work with them. The thing that most people neglect is the style, like the style of content, the strategy, everything that goes into it is completely different. Versus if I was working with a like more boutique dealer who is owned locally and doesn't have the brand presence like Porsche does. Like Porsche has a worldwide presence, right? Like you go anywhere in the world, everybody knows Porsche. So they're not marketing to bring in necessarily new business. Now they do want new business, but their strategy is a little bit different, right? Especially from the social and content creation side, where we're talking about organic reach. It's more about building like a community and having a relationship to establish different channels of and new connections with people, just to keep them on top of mind, right? Like, hey, we are here. Here's some of our inventory, even though like a lot of brand new inventory, you can't necessarily get because they've got a long list of people on pre-order, depending on the car. But, the strategy is definitely a lot different at that level because we care more about essentially communicating the level of quality of the brand out there and building relationships with the local community here. Because since we are an arm of Porsche, even though everyone knows them, we need to make sure that people in Salt Lake City know that we're here and we're around. So it's a little bit different. We're not trying to be as salesy. It gives us a little bit more creative flexibility, but it's really, really fun. And obviously, they're a great brand to work with. But again, the strategy is very, very different versus like if I was talking to somebody with like some of our other clients who don't have a national presence, but they have a local presence and they're trying to build and market to the community here because like for example, there's a couple dealers that sell a wide variety of different types of cars, right? Like they may have a Porsche, but they also have Mercedes and trucks and other cars. And so the approach and strategy is very different between the two brands because while we want to sell and do that, we're kind of approaching it from, hey, we're here. This is what we sell. This is what we do. And here's why should trust us over the competition.
So let's say you're one of these local businesses, right? And you're not like an arm of a national or international brand. Let's say you are the local dealership that, might specialize in trucks, 80% trucks, 20% just random other vehicles or EVs, or you might be a dealership that specializes in EVs. For these local automotive businesses, and whether they're across the board, right? Whether they're dealerships or they're other types of automotive businesses, what are like the two or three biggest social media and creative content mistakes that you see them make? And this can go from planning to execution to the publishing of the content. What are some examples of some, big mistakes that you often see and you have to consult people on as you kind of walk into the engagement?
So many. It's like, where do we start, honestly?
Yeah.
No, it's funny because to their credit, right? Like they're there to sell, right? Anyone who's even started a dealership is usually come from the sales side of a dealership. And so that's what they know and that's what they experience and that's what they're trying to do, right? So the number one issue that I see every dealer and really kind of almost across the board for a lot of other businesses is their content is oriented around selling. And it's like, great. Okay, here's the thing. Because of our complete access to digital media, there's a time to sell like within an ad. But when I am posting a car, there might be 12 other dealerships with that same car, right? So why am I trying to sell you just like the other dealerships? You're kind of becoming a part of all of the other noise of what people are doing. And that's honestly the number one mistake that I see people do is they immediately want to come in, they want to do content, and then they're like, all right, hey, so we're going to push this car today and we're going to sell it to you through this piece of media. And it's like, okay, yes, but that's not like nobody has the trust in you as a dealer.
Why did they pick that car? Has it been sitting on the lot there forever and they want to get more eyeballs on? Like, why do they always pick that one?
It's so funny. It's a combination. Sometimes it is like, okay, this is like the hot car. We know we're going to sell it. We just want to let people know that we have one available. Sometimes it is like, all right, this lot's been sitting on, or this car's been sitting on the lot for the last 60 plus days. And, they pay interest on every car every day.
Yep.
And so, they might just be trying to move it a little bit. But yeah, It's usually the latter.
And frankly, it's either the latter or there's no rhyme or reason to it. We just want to push this one, right? It's like
Exactly. Yes. And it's just funny because again, like buyers are very conscious. They know what they want to an extent.
Yeah.
And so why be a part of what everyone else is doing? Why not be different? And how do you separate yourself from other dealerships? How do you, these are a lot of the questions we walk through, not only just how you separate yourself, but what makes you different? Because, selling a car is selling a car, but what makes your dealership different? And that's what we try to break down for people.
I ask that question a lot because when we build websites for people, and even these days when you're doing SEO, it's not just about throwing keywords in there that's going to get you found by Google. You actually, all of us now want to get found in ChatGPT and all the AI search engines. In order for us to do that, we have to talk about why you're special, right?
Mhm.
And we talked about this, I think, on the last time I recorded, which is like your brand has never been more important. When you are working with the client, you're doing that initial consultation with them. You haven't even shot a photo yet, right? Or recorded a video. How do you deal with it when they can't really answer you why they're special or why they're different? Or they give you a generic answer. Oh, we like our customers and we have the best selection of trucks and we have financing and we have this and we have that. How do you I'll give you my response, after I hear what you say, but how do you handle that when they can't really tell you why they're different?
It's very difficult because if they don't even really know, you can try to convince them of other ideas. But if they don't know and they can't communicate that to me and I don't know their business that well,
Uh-huh.
we kind of sit in this meeting ground. Now, we do our best to do our research on these types of dealers. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, honestly, like you can walk into any dealer, they're going to offer you the same thing. They work with the same banks. All you're really hoping is that their inventory is not garbage, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not going to run into mechanical issues and other things. And you hope that there's other aspects. So there are little value adds that people can do or say that they offer. But
Yeah.
really at the end of the day, when someone can't communicate that with me, I think the best thing I do is I just start asking them questions.
Yeah.
Well, why'd you get into this business?
Yep. Yep.
Oh, well,
Yep.
I do this and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you care about the customer. Okay, great. So let's start there. Okay, well, why? And then we start kind of going down this, I don't want to call it a journey necessarily, but just, quite a few questions that help clarify, okay, who are you? What's the brand? What's your personality? Are you the loud salesman that's like, we're going to get you the best deal. I'm going to work for you. Or are you the guy who's like, I'm here to help you, right? Because even that right there is a
Yep.
differentiator.
Well, the best example on love them or hate him is CarMax, right? Like
Hmm.
they came out Carvana as well. Like, look, everyone hates these companies, right? And they are what they are, but um like CarMax had a very clear value proposition. Like you come in, you know what the price is. We give you top dollar for your trade in. We make it easy for you to buy from us so you don't have to haggle, right? And that actually drove like I think a lot of messaging and branding for a lot of the used car, franchises that, have been out there. That's interesting, Brayden. When I meet with a client and they're not able to express what makes them different, I actually tell them like, "Hey, we should just stop this meeting and you should think about it a little bit more." And to exactly to your point, here are some questions that you should be thinking about. We do a brand messaging project. It's $699, but it's like we ask you a bunch of questions over a questionnaire. We do a workshop with you, and then I'll work to kind of like tell your brand story, right? And put it together in kind of like a one or two pager. It's really interesting, like when you ask these questions, like, oh, why'd you get into the business? What do you like about your customers? What don't you like about your customers? What do you hate about this business, right? What are you trying to change? Sometimes when you start just asking those questions of yourself as an owner, and I would do it when you're not in the office, like, like do it somewhere where, it's quiet and, you're kind of like thinking freely. But when you start to answer those questions, you start to think a little bit deeper about your business. And I think most of us as small business owners are just so busy that we don't have time to get deep on our business, which is frankly a travesty, right? Like marketing agencies that don't do marketing for themselves, that was us, right? And so I think the more that you can just maybe pause and think about what makes you special, that'll give professionals like Brayden an opportunity to really like show you what they can do, right? Because there's been so many times where the client's like, well, Andrew, you know what's best. You know how my brand should be. No, I don't actually. In fact, I think I know what it's like, but you may not like it, right? And so like never delegate the responsibility of your brand to another party, right? Like they can guide you on what you should be thinking about and they can help you bring it together, but you've got to really be able to tell like why your brand is different and what makes you special. Because I could pull out something that might be interesting, but you're like, I hate that idea. What are you, what are you talking about? And you're the one who has to
Totally.
live with your business, not me. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's so funny because I hate when they try to delegate it to you because it's like, look, I can only come up with what I think your brand represents based on what your perception is to me. And maybe I got to reword that a little bit, but I will perceive your brand a certain way based on what you've already done, and that may not be what you're trying to represent.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, people got to figure that out. And if anything, they just got to figure out if they can summarize it into one sentence of what they stand for or what they stand against. That helps immensely.
Yeah, totally. Like that can give creative direction. We can build more content off of those angles. And then all of a sudden, you don't just have some really flashy video with a million, jump cuts, of different trucks and cars and things like that, and cool music in the background because that's just like that's not interesting, right? It's
No.
it's eye catching, but it's not going to particularly help you for your own marketing. So, yeah, I think that was a really good discussion. Like, don't delegate the responsibility of your brand and what makes you special to somebody else. You feel like you're doing that, that means you're being lazy, right? Like you need to really put in the legwork because that's the job of a founder and an owner is to really differentiate yourself and talk about why you're different, especially here in Utah, right? There's so many of the same kind of similar businesses. And as we're growing, sure, there's a bigger population, but that just means that you've got to stand out more from the competition than anybody else, right? Um,
Exactly. And one thing, sorry, I think the one
yeah.
thing to kind of leave off from that, just as kind of put a bow on it, is the number one mistake I see businesses make is that they think their product is going to be so good that that's why customers will come. Like, no, especially in the dealership space, your product is basically the same. Unless you're manufacturing your own car, your product is the same as anywhere else that anyone can go and grab
Yep.
it. So finding a different way and understanding that your product isn't just solely what makes your business. It's your brand, it's who you are, it's who you represent, how you go about your business, your personality, all of that will play into it. And that needs to be portrayed well so people can trust you.
Yep.
And again, I think if any business style, when you rely on your product to help sell your business, you're going to lose, or at
Yep.
least always feel behind and feel like you need to catch up. So,
100%. Yeah. So I want to talk about another topic, which I think it's a nuanced topic that I don't think many automotive business owners see, which is this idea between are you a transactional business or are you a lifestyle business, right? And when I say transactional, it's like, hey, you need an oil change. That's a transactional thing, right? You need to get your winter tires swapped out. You need to get new tires, right? You need wiper blades changed. You need a service done for a specific car. These are things that are what I call transactional types of businesses where generally speaking, people are searching for them when they need to get something done, right? It's a maintenance related thing, it's a regular thing. They're going to go to, and for anyone who's old enough to know this, the yellow pages, right? They're going to go look for that particular oil change business, tire shop, right? Automotive repair shop. They're going to be looking you up by and indexing you by the type of business you are. And there's a very good chance that they're looking for someone today or this weekend, right? To get their errands and things like that done. It's one of the things on their to-do list. There's a very different style of marketing for transactional businesses like that versus what I would call more lifestyle businesses, right? These are businesses where people discover it more through the content or brand. It may not be something that is 100% needed or required, you know what I mean? But it's certainly something that, um, in some industries might be required. In some industries, it's more of a lifestyle sort of thing, right? It could be a wrap business, right? It could be installation of stereo systems, right? Body kit installations, painting, rims, things like that. Extra sort of things that kind of go along with that, with these. So, Brayden, I'm kind of curious on the lifestyle types of businesses, right? Um, what types of content do you think are important for those types of businesses? And I call these more like identity building types of content, right? Um, in your opinion, like what types of automotive businesses really need to have this? And you kind of referred to this earlier, the brand and kind of lifestyle contents, right? To remind you that they're there. But there's also businesses that need that kind of content to educate you on why you might need their service. So tell me a little bit about these sort of lifestyle focused automotive businesses and the kind of content or marketing that you think is appropriate for them.
Yeah. So, when you're talking about, and really, I think it's interesting because the idea of transactional versus lifestyle is even kind of a weird line. Nowadays, I think that's starting to get more and more blended because people want to work with brands that they like and they love versus just some transactional deal. Right now, food wise, right? Like certain businesses like McDonald's, it's a transaction. We don't need to like absolutely be in love with the brand to transact with them. But when you're talking about especially higher ticket items in the automotive space, like if you have a wrap shop and you are trying to, showcase what you do and through content and who you are and your kind of just your value to the community through your services, how do you separate yourself from everyone else that has a wrap shop? And the lifestyle, that type of content, you can keep a lot more raw. You can keep a lot more authentic. Everyone immediately jumps to, and I feel like it's because we've just been inundated with so much content and things over the years where marketing was like so corporate and like, well, it works for this big company and they have a chain across the US. And it's like, well, yeah, that works for that style of company, but you're not them. Like, how do you separate yourself and be different? Because especially if you start to sound like them, that might even push some people away who want to work with someone who is local. And so, when we talk about like lifestyle content, I almost like to even reframe it and be like, look, we're keeping it authentic. We're keeping the content you and your shop. How do we build trust in the community? Because also people will like to rely on their name and their brand to be like, oh, well, our name is something. It's like that might be true, but people want to connect with a human, not with another brand. Especially if I'm going to spend 3 to 5 to potentially $10,000 for a wrap on my car or PPF or tint. Maybe it's audio related. Maybe it's even just buying a car, right? Like there's certain things where you have to go 1 or 2 steps deeper to help build trust not only with the community, but just also showcase who you are. And the great part is you don't have to appease to everybody. In fact, you shouldn't appease to everybody. There's certain people that are going to like your personality, and we have to be okay with that. But that type of content can start to help you separate yourself. And I think it works great for these, more lifestyle, more local companies that, care about their customers and their relationships, right? Like I know a few wrap shops where their entire business is built off of those relationships that they've curated over the
Yeah.
last few years. And so if that's kind of the business style that you work with, that's who you are, that's what you need to focus on because those types of relationships and the communication you're going to have with the community, who you are, what you stand for, is going to go so much farther than just trying to sell somebody on a wrap.
Yeah, and while we're talking about wraps, we have a mutual client who's a wrap client, and I was really talking with him, trying to figure out like, hey, like how can we bring an angle to you that's a little bit different, And what became really clear was that like he's a marketing expert, right? An offline marketing expert, right? And we talk about digital, we talk about social, we talk about, all the digital channels that get all the attention to these days. But let's not forget, especially in Utah, right? Like offline, regular direct mail, like that kind of stuff still works very well here, right? There's a reason why Yesco is putting up billboards all across the 15 right now, right? You're seeing like I'm starting to see them up in Wyoming and Montana and going east into Colorado as well as you move towards Colorado. And there is something to be said about, and again, remember, like there's a lot of people who pass through Utah. There is like, I think 3 or 4 times as many people that come here to visit as there are that live here, right? And so, 15 is a major throughway in the United States, right? So you've got people road tripping, you've got truckers who are coming through, right? We live in a really interesting part of this country, right? And there's a lot of attention on it, a lot of people who go through it. So when you're thinking about this type of offline marketing, I was telling him, like, you need to educate your audience on why offline marketing is actually a really important channel. Because I can guarantee you a lot of these business owners are thinking about online and digital and all the things that I do, right? But the reality of it is that there's a lot of people who are trying to understand how they can use wraps or vinyl to help them improve their offline marketing if they're a business owner. And so that was kind of the through line that we kind of came up with and said, hey, look, if we can position you more as a expert in marketing to drive demand, to get people to consider, hey, I haven't invested, I could buy a billboard or I could wrap my fleet, you know what I mean? And get an unlimited sort of ROI, right, on that, as long as the wrap is there. We need to bring awareness of of that as a potential solution to folks. And that's just an example, I think, of trying to think a little bit outside of, oh, well, we're the best quality wraps. We have the best designs. We do it fast. There's no bubbles. There's no this. There's no that, right? Like that's expected. We talked about that last time, Brayden, that a lot of these things that we say are values are kind of like, they're just par for the course.
Yeah, it's
Um,
baseline.
yeah. And so I think that's a lot of why you bring in professionals like Brayden or myself, which is like, we'll help you think through an angle that might help you pull out the thing that makes you unique. But you've got to tell us what makes you unique. And then our job is to figure out, how do we translate that into media? How do we translate that into SEO blog posts and Google business profile posts, right? One thing I wanted to touch on, Brayden, was the transactional, right? Some people call these the sort of like the boring versions of it, right? But the reality of it is like most of the businesses that are out there that are doing small business marketing have some kind of transactional nature in them, right? You got to get an oil change every X miles. You've got to take your car in for service every X miles. You've got to swap out tires every season or after every X miles, right? And so there's already pre-baked in demand. You don't have to generate demand for these things. The problem that I see, though, is that when a customer is searching for one of these transactional businesses, they don't make it easy to buy from them, right? And that's usually where you've got to have an offer. You've got to have a coupon. Why do you think Jiffy Lube sends out those $29.99, $39.99 specials? Dude, Brayden, since we were in high school, probably, right? We've been seeing those things come through the mail. They keep doing it because it produces an ROI for them, right? It gets the customer to come back. It either gets them to come back, it gets them to come in the first time. If they've stalled out for a while, it reminds them that they're there, right? And so my advice to anyone who is doing more transactional marketing is focus on organic search and paid search, but also make sure that when you're running any kind of paid campaigns that you have some kind of offer in place to capture them, right? And most importantly is when you have that offer in place, link it up to an SMS campaign, an email campaign, or something so that you're staying top of mind with them, right? And that top of mind, that's where some of the lifestyle content I think Brayden talked about earlier comes in, because you don't want to keep top of mind by sending them a promotional coupon every single week, right? Sometimes you might want to mix that up with a piece of educational content or how-to content or something else that's a little more lifestyle driven, right? But I would say if you are one of these quote unquote like transactional businesses, focus on search and making sure that you have a good offer and a funnel in place so that if they're not ready to buy from you right away, that you're reminding them of why you're there. So that's just my kind of like my 2 cents on the transactional businesses. Maybe going back to the lifestyle side a little bit, Brayden, when you are working with automotive businesses that sell identity, right? aspiration or a visual appeal, like a membership, a high end membership, for example, right? What does a real social media and kind of content strategy look like for them, right? Do you need like really sexy shoots and really high production quality, right? Or to what you were talking about before, do you try to lean more towards like authentic kind of content? And what does that sort of authentic content look like to you?
So, there's a few different things we like to lean on. So when we break down a content strategy for a brand like that, what we like to do is, well, let me take a step back here, I guess I should say. One is it's really easy to fall into the trap of making the same content over and over again. Now, it works, especially when you find something that works, you want to replicate that, right? Because now
Yeah.
you've found the coin, and it's like the strategy. I think Gary Vee talks about it, or Caleb Ralston, but you take 80 to 90% of what worked, and then you change that last 10 to 20% and
Yeah.
remake the next video.
Right.
Um, so it's good to, obviously find what works, but if you're doing the same thing over and over again of like, oh, we're just going to do this one style video. And if it's not working and you keep doing it, you're like, well, maybe hopefully it will work. So what we like to do from a content strategy side is like, oh, okay, hey, we picked apart your business. We understand the direction. We understand what your brand wants to do, what you offer. And then also by, observing what the market has responded to with other businesses who are doing the same thing you have and are trying to do, then we take all of that and we kind of funnel it down into individual columns that we can then pull content from. So we'll find a general topic or a general idea. When I say general, I mean it means we can create 1,000 subtopics underneath that. So we'll create these different pillars of content that we can generate ideas from. So it always feels fresh. So it always feels new. Even if we're maybe hitting the same type of, style of video, like how many times can you educate somebody on tin? Well, there's a few different ways to do it. And there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. But if we're always only posting about education of tint, people are going to
Yep.
be bored and don't care about it.
Yep.
So, we will try to throw a couple different other opportunities in there to create content. So that way you don't just have like the really cool trendy content or, the crazy hype reels or sizzle reels as we call them. you
Yep.
know, you can mix in a few other things. And so by that, we'll kind of create the pillars, we'll put the levels of importance on them, but we also try to attribute those pillars of content to where it might fall in on the funnel for people who are watching it. So, maybe I
Yeah.
don't know who you are and I don't know anything about Rapid or PPF. So we're going to have content that fills that. Same thing for the next level down, the next level, and so on and so forth. So it's very strategic in that sense where we try to, appease from the top of the bundle to the bottom of the funnel and keep it entertaining, keep it raw, keep it authentic, and all aimed towards your brand and the goals that you have over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Let's get a little specific. So I'm kind of curious, Brayden, like, people always like to know like budgets, right? Like what should I be spending? Let's say you're working with a brand. They're definitely a more lifestyle focused automotive brand. They're heavy on social media. Clearly, they get a lot of attention, followers, engagement on social media. Maybe less so on the website and SEO side, but clearly, like they're growing their business, social first. Like, what is $2,000 a month, right? Like, get a business like that, right? Or what would you recommend if they had a budget of about $2,000 to $3,000 a month? To what kind of packages would you sort of consider for them or think through with them?
Yeah. So again, it's very just demand based. So what is the goal? Because 2000 is kind of like where we start on the social media and the
Yeah,
content side, just
good.
because it is so heavy overhead. So that's kind of like where the start really kind of breaches in. Truthfully, like we go, okay, hey, at $2,000 a month, what's most important to your brand right now? Is it customers? Like, are you fighting for money and you need, you're worried about next month's rent email when that notification comes up and you got to pay the landlord? Like, do you worry
Great.
about that? Because if so, let's do one video. Let's run that as an ad and we run that in conjunction with you, right? Where
Yep.
we need to bring in customer, bring in money. But when we talk about specifically just social media and the brand strategy side, we go, okay, hey, what does your brand need right now? If you're new and you're growing, well, it's typically it's awareness, right? So hey, we need transactions as far as bringing in customers. Obviously, that is the goal. Like, right, we're in this because we need to make money at some level. We can't do it all for free. But with that, we try to go, okay, cool. Your brand needs awareness. So, what's the type of content that's going to bring you the most eyeballs possible, but still be reminiscent of your brand? Not just be like a cool video that people go, that's dupe, or dope, click it, swipe, and then go to the next one.
Yep.
Like, we want people to look at this and go, oh, that's cool. And then want to engage with you further and then have a ton of other bingeable content. So that's kind of where we start. We'll do a few videos a month just to kind of get the ball rolling. And
Yeah.
then from there, the intensity increases. We can do a lot more. Our bandwidth becomes greater. And we can also really start to dial in the content to fill those different parts of the funnel. But typically when somebody's like, hey, I just want to, do that, that's kind of where our starting budget is. It's like, great. Well, let's just get you eyeballs. Let's get people to know who you are and see your page.
Here's a tricky question. What if they are new and they want customers now?
It's a great question. I would say we are probably not the right fit.
Yeah, me too.
Like, to be frank, here's the thing, right? Time value of money. If I have $2,000 and I'm worried about next month's rent check that I got to fork out, or I've got employees and I'm worried about payroll, well, you got to take care of your bills. So we're not going to be the right fit, because building your brand is a huge investment over time, right? And I say huge investment, it's not that large, but over time, it takes time to do it. Like, we can't just provide results within 1 month. We can get you eyeballs, we can get you viewership, that will bring in clientele. But when you are really, as a new business, you can do a lot of content yourself to start, but I would say dump it into the parts of the business that are going to bring you that type of value, right? Like SEO, running ads, put some of that money towards an ad budget. So that way you can start targeting people around in your community. Like, social media, you've got a lot of noise, and the quickest way to stand out on the noise on these platforms is, unfortunately, to pay the platform. So, do that. But the great part is with that, we're throwing it out to the masses. By doing an ad, you can throw that directly at the client and your ideal, ICP. And so, yeah, that to me is like that. I've had those conversations many a times.
Yeah, it's so I have to ask the question, and again, another agency. I always want to see what another agency owner says, and I'm glad to hear that we're of the same opinion. But you should not expect customers when you first open your doors, I guess. If you haven't done sales, if you haven't done networking, if you haven't literally gone out there, knocked on doors, told people about your business, if you just start with marketing, you're going to be negative ROI from day one, guaranteed, 100%. Right. And the reason why Brayden says we're not the right business for you is because the way I look at it is like, you see us as a silver bullet to solving your payroll problems. And that's not what marketing does. Marketing is one piece of the growth equation. Marketing sometimes doesn't work because your product sucks. Marketing sometimes doesn't work because you haven't differentiated yourself as a brand. Marketing sometimes doesn't work because of the way you packaged and priced your products, even though they might be really good. You'll be shocked at how many times I'll come in and I have to build a service page for a business. I'm like, oh, we charge $250 an hour. Okay. How many hours does it take usually? Does it always take that many hours, or does it take more? Or is there anything else that is included in this? Like, you got to make it easy for people to buy. And when I start running ads to a page where things aren't priced and packaged, well, sure enough, we get tons of clicks, like 8-10% click-through rate, high ad quality, all that stuff. And they feel, Andrew, we're not getting any leads. That's because when they come to your website, they're not liking what they see, right? It's really simple, right? We're targeting the people that you want to target. Here's the report. They're clicking through at a rate much higher than we would normally expect. But if you're telling me you're not getting the next step in the funnel, they didn't like what they saw there. So you got to fix that. I think if you have not shown a history of getting random people to buy stuff from your website, through your phone or whatever, you should not expect a marketing agency to come in there and fix it, because the reality of it is there's more than a marketing problem there. There's maybe a product problem. There's maybe a pricing problem. There might even be a customer service problem, because if no one's there to pick up the phone and they don't have the right talk track for you, right? Like they're going to bounce and you're going to blame it on marketing. Oh, my marketing agency sucks, right? So like, I think every experienced marketing agency, when you come across a new brand that like starts to say, "Oh yeah, we want to get customers through the door like yesterday," that is like the first red flag that any experienced agency owner is going to say like, "Whoa, that sucks. I thought this was a great lead. It's not a great lead anymore. Damn it. Now I got to go find another one, because inevitably, like, unless the conversation I have with them is like, look, it's going to take you 6 to 8 weeks just to build the foundation. And just because you build it, they will not come. Then we need to start doing the marketing, right? So are you willing to wait 8 to 12 to 16 weeks before you start potentially seeing some revenue from some of the effort that we're doing? And most of them don't like that, which is why I have a very common phrase in the emails that I send on these things, which is, you're not going to like to hear this, but so I'm
Yep.
glad to hear that you've kind of experienced the same thing on your end as well.
Yeah, well, no, and to your credit, like it is interesting because working with a lot of these like new and up and coming and starting businesses, if they really don't have like a foundation there quite yet, I just always ask them this question: If I brought you 100 people tomorrow, could you help them? And they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like no." And it's like,
Yeah, it's a
okay,
great
then you're
one. I love it.
probably not
I
ready
love
to
it.
take that step because
Yeah.
you got to grow into it. You got to build your processes. What is your offer? Is it something people care about? And also, even if I brought you 100 people tomorrow, if your prices are too high and it's out of their budget for this type of clientele you're thinking you're going to attract, well, then either you're pushing to the wrong clientele or you need to adjust some things in your business, right? Like there's so
Yep.
many different things from an infrastructure side that you kind of have to go through the motions on as a business owner and really figure out and understand, because we can only understand by our own research and by looking at other people. But if your product isn't saying what the market is demanding or doesn't provide at that, maybe it's too high price, whatever the reason is,
Exactly. Yeah.
we can only
Yeah.
do so much for you.
Here's another one, Brayden. I'm kind of curious. When a business wants to move forward with marketing, but they have no awareness to themselves, is there any sort of foundational media that you think that they might want to just start with? And I ask this because a lot of times as an agent, as focusing on websites and SEO, I'm like, look, if you have to invest in something right now, it's got to be a website, right? You got to have a storefront, right? And for me, it's always, if you really want your website to communicate brand and value, you probably need to invest in some media, right? So like for you, like, is there let's say they are starting out, they are okay with not getting the ROI on the investments they're making right away. Um, is there a foundational sort of package that you might recommend to them to think about starting with?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny. It's a founders package that we have. And
Cool.
it's actually really interesting because this applies for a lot of brands, whether you've been around for 10 years or you are just starting out.
Yeah.
And the foundational package essentially breaks down this way. One is we want to tell your story as a brand. So we call it the founder story. It's something that really kind of builds trust. It shows you as an individual, as a business owner. We kind of start to, I want to say, have you be vulnerable on camera, but tell your story. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Why did you get into this? Because sometimes we don't wake up. Like, I didn't wake up one day and was like, oh, the dream job's a photographer. Like, it's just kind of, I stepped into it out of passion, right? And some people don't sit there and go, "Oh my gosh, I wake up and I want to wrap people's cards." Like you kind of come into it. So what's that story? Tell that why
Yeah.
you're doing
Yep.
what you're doing.
Yep.
That's kind of first step. Second, it is cool to showcase your brand in a really cool light. So like a sizzle reel that kind of highlights it, something you can use as a banner video on your website, something that you can throw on
Google
social media
Business
that's kind of high
Profile
content.
too. You can put this
Yes.
type of video on your GBP because look, like those people who are searching on GBP, when they click on your profile, like they're looking for someone. And if you have that sizzle reel right there, that is just like an awesome piece of content that can help them to take that next step to tap or pick up the phone and call.
Absolutely. It's like chef's kiss, I call it.
Yep. Yep. 100%. Yep.
So yeah, that's like the next kind of piece of content that I think really adds to it. And then where we can start to really build trust past even all of that is testimonials. So after you got 2 or 3 clients through the door that are like advocates for your brand, and not just like people who are like, yeah, no, it was good working with you. Like people who like absolutely love you, who are endeared to you now, who, always call you up and be like, hey, my friend just did this. Can you help him out? Right. Those are the types of people we want to get on camera to tell that story, what it was like working with you, because a quick testimonial video now takes you out of the light because you as a business owner are going to be biased about your product. But if you can have someone who's worked with you and loves your product and maybe just isn't your wife or your friend or your kids, being advocates for you, but somebody who's real and who's worked with you, talk about you as a brand, that goes so far, and lets people know that you're a trustworthy person, that you are someone that when they go to work with, they're going to have a similar experience, or they hope to have that similar experience.
The testimonial piece is so important. And I actually think when I meet a new business, right, and we are doing, we're trying to build their foundation. We're not just focused on leads at the beginning. It is so shocking to see what happens to the lead generation calls, all those things, when you start to have testimonials on your Google business profile. Like, we built the best websites in the world, awesome SEO, great content, right? Just answered every question up front. But the new sites that we build that don't have a lot of social proof on them, they don't convert. It's really simple. And, and automotive is one place, certainly, right? Because people don't want to spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a wrap, or they don't want to, do some of these more lifestyle focused things. Seeing bad reviews, right? It's like going to a Yelp restaurant that has 3-star. Yeah, I could go to it, but do I want to? When
Yeah,
I
you're
have
like, I'm
other
rolling the
choices.
dice, so it's a 50-50 shot. We'll see.
Yeah, pretty much, dude. So I think having the testimonials are so critical, because what SEO can do is it can get people to find out who you are and what you're about. What SEO cannot do is convince them to pick up the phone and call you. That's all about your content marketing. That's all about your media. That's all about the brand that you present. SEO is just one part of the equation, right? And um, when I meet clients who've already been doing SEO and like they get the traffic, but they're not seeing customers, I'm just licking my chops, right? Because I'm like, oh man, the hard part is done. Now the hard part is done, which is getting the eyeballs. Now we just gotta focus those eyeballs and get them converted, right? And many, many, many times I see the conversion rates increase as we provide more social proof, as we use more testimonials, right? It is a direct correlation between the two. So I think that's a really important piece of media. Are there any other pieces of foundational media that you include in that package, Brayden?
Yeah, we try to create the media in that package to be formatted. We might do a couple other style videos, but the formatting I think is the most important part, because like to what you were saying, we want to format it for your Google My Business page. We want to be able to format it so it can go on your website, and then even make a cut so you can put that type of stuff on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you want that. There are other pieces that we might include, but from a foundation side, especially for the cost, like we really hone in on those few first, and then we kind of branch out from there.
I want to wrap our episode by maybe kind of straddling the middle a little bit here, because the reality of it is, whether you're a transactional business or you're a lifestyle business, you probably need a little bit of both of this kind of marketing, right? So like a used car dealership, for example, probably needs both search and social presence, right? If you're a detailing shop, you probably want to get Google searches, but you also want to get found through social as well. So you probably, you might lean more on one channel or the other, depending on what your budgets are and whatnot. But in general, good marketing, we should be tackling all of these channels, right? And identifying the right channel mix. And so for me, like, if you're in that sort of like 2 to 4K a month budget for marketing that includes like ad spend, right? You might want to be thinking about, hey, where do you want to split your budget, right? Do you want to split it more towards social? And if you're going to split it more towards social, you probably need to be investing more dollars with someone like Brayden, because it doesn't make sense to be putting most of your channel budget onto social without investing in media, right? And so on the flip side, like, hey, if you see like, look, you see a lot of value in Google ads, and that's basically where you're looking to convert all day, you probably need someone to manage your Google ads, right? And to pay someone, an expert to manage them, because we do things like feed the conversion data back into Google, which can help you drop your cost per acquisition, right? And so, regardless of what you're doing, and you're probably picking multiple channels, just make sure that you're allocating budget, for the expert, right? That's going to help feed not only the strategy for the channel, but the content and the management and everything that else that kind of goes into the channel itself. Um, Brayden, any advice for anyone else out there who might be having to straddle, like thinking about, do I want to do search or social, and where should I sort of put my budgets?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I would say is if you're sitting there and you're wondering, how do I take my brand to the next level? Consider what your goal is with that. What does that even mean, right? Does that mean obviously business, like you got to make more money, so maybe that's more clientele. But what does that actually entail, and what can you afford right now as a business? Because this is a long-term play, both on the social side, but even on the SEO and some of the other ad strategies. So to me, I think the biggest thing is identify who you are as a brand, where you want to be in the next 3 to 5, potentially 10 years, and then understand what can you allocate towards it, and can you allocate that and commit to yourself for doing that at least a year. And then based on those goals, you can kind of dissect, okay, does it make more sense to put money into ads? Does it make more sense to invest into the branding and social media side? Or does it make more sense to maybe invest in my own infrastructure in the business? Because sometimes that is the right answer, to reinvest back into the business. So that's what I would say, is break that down, understand your goal, understand who you are, and then from there just dissect it. And talk to professionals, like have a conversation and see what they offer and see what my advantage is. Their services might bring your business, because there's also a thing that I've recognized with a lot of people is they don't know what they don't know. And so if you as a business don't even know what's going to help take it to the next level, obviously everyone's going to pitch you on their services, but talk to them, understand what they offer, what value they bring, and then see if that lines up with what you are trying to do. And if that does, then find the right individual to do it and go from there.
Yeah. Actually, this episode, Brayden, we talked a lot about just general business strategy. Like, don't go throwing dollars out there if you just started your business, right? If you need customers through the door yesterday, right? Like, there's other things you probably have to be thinking about before you go put that money out there. And so not every automotive business has the same marketing playbook. In fact, it's probably a mix of multiple playbooks, like Brady and I talked about today. So if you're a transactional business, you want to own your search presence first in general. You're still going to need social for sure, but there's probably the dollars on the tree are probably closer to you by starting with search, right? If you're a lifestyle brand, um, it's a little bit harder to get folks, right? You're going to need to invest in content. You're going to need to invest in a brand. You're going to need to invest in building an identity to get there. And that's going to take you potentially longer to get to that revenue before someone like a transactional business is. And that just makes sense, right? And if you're somewhere in the middle, like now you've got a framework, right? To split, like how much do I invest in social and how much media do I need? Do I just need to invest a little bit in search, right? So use this framework that kind of Brayden and I have been talking about to split your budget without wasting it. So if you need help with your Google business profile or any of your kind of local search marketing, reach out to us at Tobe Agency. And if you need any help with content strategy, video, social media management for your automotive brand, make sure you connect with Brayden at Be Social. He's seen a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different case studies, and he can be the right person for you to kind of figure out how to tell your brand. So thanks for watching Grow Smarter Utah. We'll see you in the next episode. Brayden, so thanks so much for dropping all your knowledge and your experience here today. I'm sure we'll have some other interesting topics to talk about as we get to the near future. So thanks for joining me again, Brayden. Take care.
Thank you.